Hello, welcome to today's edition of Hope and Help for Families. My name is Reverend Matthew J. Watts. I'm here today with my co-host, Ms. Christy Day. And today we're going to be talking about the youth component of the Workforce Investment Act, and in particular about the Hope Youth Development Movement, a component that's been implemented in Kanawha County. Christy, welcome again to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So much information that we are trying to let people know about, and this is something very important going on in the Kanawha Valley and throughout the state. And of course, Hope is the youth service provider for Region 3 for the Workforce Investment Act. Explain to folks why it is that this is important or information that they even need to know.
Well, it's very important because the Workforce Investment Act of 1998 was one of the most important pieces of legislation passed because it totally revolutionizes how job training and workforce development is going to be funded by the federal government and how it's going to be done in the various states. Within the Workforce Investment Act of 1998, there was language that dealt with youth, and it requires states to provide not only a summer work experience for youth, but a 12-month program of comprehensive services, and that's different from anything we've had in the past. And so it's very important that parents and youth understand the opportunities that may be available for the youth under the Workforce Investment Act in their various communities.
And what also I think is very interesting is that the Hope Community Development Corporation was doing a lot of this before you were awarded the participation in the Workforce Investment Act in terms of the mentoring and the tutoring and some of that character education that everyone is talking about these days.
That's correct. When we started Hope Community Development back in 1996, we had a vision and an idea that if we could develop a program that had a menu of services that we could offer to young people, then we could do an assessment of the young person on an individual basis and do an individualized plan that would help that young person be successful. And so we developed programs with character education, leadership, career awareness, mentoring, offering tutoring services. We developed an alternative sentencing for juvenile offenders, a transition and reentry program for juvenile offenders, an absence education program, and just a job placement program, among some other services. Again, the idea is if there's a menu, then we could select from that menu and customize a plan to help that young person be successful. And so we were delighted when we saw the Workforce Investment Act that it calls for a similar approach, that each young person should be looked at individually and that a customized plan should be developed that they refer to as an individual service strategy to help that young person be successful.
You termed this, or you designated this as a youth movement.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I'm really excited about that. We've coined our particular initiative the Hope Youth Development Movement, because I think if you look at the history of the United States, you will see that anytime there's been a major change, a paradigm shift involving young people, it often was initiated by a movement, whether it is the Revolutionary War or the Spanish-American War, the women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement. There's a lot of energy among young people. And so what we're suggesting is we need to gather that energy and to bring in support from adults and others to create a positive movement among young people where they're talking about education and post-secondary education and careers and jobs and so forth, to where youth development becomes a movement that sweeps all through West Virginia and everyone is talking about how we can develop our youth.
Well, what is also interesting is that the group that you're targeting in terms of kind of harboring and manifesting this movement are sometimes youth that you wouldn't necessarily think of being the catalyst for this. I mean, they're folks from lower income situations. Perhaps their parents aren't as involved in their educational or their social or their well-being period as some think they should be. And you're talking about a whole lot of social, economic issues that are targeting this group of people also. So what makes you think that they can actually be the catalyst for a movement?
Well, I think that's the great untapped natural resource in our state and around this country, is this population of young people that we erroneously label as being at risk. I like to see them as being untapped potential. And I think there's tremendous untapped potential and talent within this group of young people. Secondly, we believe part of the problem is that we've not articulated a clear vision for these young people that really would arouse their emotions and their energy that would cause them to want to be engaged in this type of positive activity. let's face it, you know, much of the programs we design and develop often target the talented few at the top and those who are pretty competent within the middle. But young people often who don't have some of the advantages that some other young people have do not have a quality, holistic, integrated, well thought out program that says this is for you. And so what we're saying is we want to provide the best possible venue to show these young people that we're putting together the best program that we possibly can that any young person, you know, would desire to be in. And it has been designed with you in mind. And if you will engage yourself, you can create a movement within the community, not only for yourself, but for other young people like you. And we're excited about the response.
Well, and we'll get to a little bit more of this in a moment, but you have some guidelines, you have some a measuring stick that you're kind of up against also. And when you're talking about a movement, sometimes that kind of thing takes a while to get started. I mean, for the momentum to get rolling. So you're talking about something you're trying to do in a matter of months so that you can see some results within the year. Is that realistic?
Well, you know, we think it's realistic. We think it's realistic because we did not start when the Workforce Investment Program started. I mean, we've been doing character education, leadership, tutor mentoring, these other programs. We've been doing them for a number of years in the school system and within the community. And so we've already created some momentum and some energy and some excitement with the young people. We now have the venue of the Workforce Investment Act that now sort of codifies everything and say, okay, here are the performance measures, here are the desired outcomes, and here's the target. And so our philosophy is this: if we develop the right programs and have the right system and get the young people involved, then we will have the right outcomes. And so we're not so much preoccupied specifically with these particular targets. We're just saying that at the end of a year, we think that there will be positive, measurable outcomes that that can be witnessed, and we're hoping, of course, they meet the targets, you know, of the Workforce Investment Act. But we are excited, and we believe that we're going to have some significant results over the next 10 to 12 months.
What I would be interested in knowing also is how is it that you're going to persuade a community that they need to be interested, worried, and not only that, but participating in this kind of activity? Because honestly, many people just consider not only the generation, but this aspect of the generation you're talking about as throwaways. I mean, there's folks who can't be helped, who cannot be contributing members of society. How is it that you see them getting involved in making this happen?
Well, there's still a lot of people of goodwill out there. There are a lot of people that believe that this population of the low income, the quote-unquote at-risk youth, that they can be reached, and there's some people who really want to see this population empowered. But secondly, we also articulate to others that it's in all of our enlightened self-interest to help this population. When you look at the demographics of West Virginia, what you find, we're the oldest state in the union. We have one of the lowest immigration rates of any state, and we have one of the highest out-migration rates. And normally the people that are leaving are the people that we are educating at WVU and other universities. They're now more marketable in other markets, and so they're the ones that's leaving. So what we end up having left in the state are very often the low-income youth who aren't as mobile and they can get out. So they are the workforce of tomorrow. And so we're saying to the business community, it's in your best interest to help us develop this particular group of young people who will be the entry-level workers of tomorrow. And also, let's be honest about it, this is also the group that has the highest teen pregnancy rate, the highest juvenile incarceration rate, and the group that's the most likely to end up in our adult criminal justice system. And so that's at a great social cost to the community, $25,000 to $30,000 a year to incarcerate, and there are figures out there for what it takes to raise a child that's born out of wedlock that the state has to support. So what we're saying is it is in the short and long-term health of the state for us to work with this population to where they are employed and they are paying taxes and they are the responsible parents and citizens we need for them to be. We have no choice but to help this generation of youth. If we don't, then we will suffer for it as a community.
And I imagine, if we can just touch on briefly what it is you're expecting from the various members of the West Virginia community. I mean, from the business community, I guess you would want a partnership of job internships and those kinds of opportunities. And then There are the mentorships and things that are available through individuals and organizations. Are those the kinds of partnerships Hope is looking for?
All of the above and more. What we say to people, old, middle-aged, or young, if you will commit an hour a week, we'll give you something significant to do. You can work as a tutor, you can work as a mentor, as an individual. We're reaching out to community groups, organizations, fraternities, large sororities, and say, will you consider partnering with us and making the partnership with us your project for the coming year? That you'll provide tutors and you'll provide mentors and you'll be goodwill ambassadors sharing this vision with others. To the business community, we're saying, yeah, step up to the plate with internships, with summer jobs, with job shadowing opportunities, and even consider sponsoring a young person. There's not enough resources for every young person to participate. So for $2,500, a business can sponsor a young person for a year for them to participate in the movement and have them as a summer intern within their company. We're saying to other groups that work with youth, come be a part of this system so that we can refer youth into your organization to benefit from the services that you provide. So that's the ideal, to build a system of partners across the board that are interested in working with young people so that we have a collection of those who are committed to this movement.
And Pastor Watts, tell me, how receptive has the community been to these efforts, the business community and the community as a whole?
Well, you know, we're encouraged. I mean, we've gotten great receptivity from the Kanawha County Schools. Dr. Ron Doran and his staff have been very open. We're getting established at all of the high schools and middle schools in Kanawha County, and the principals and vice principals are really excited and welcoming us in. We have some work to do in really building a bridge to the business community and to other organizations. But we think as the word continues to trickle out, and as people catch the vision of creating a youth development movement, we think they'll come on board.
Do you think with the business community it's more of an issue of you're proving ground? I mean, they want to make sure that you're legit, you're for real, that this, not you, but this organization can be trusted with these goals. Is that any part of it?
Well, I think with the business community, for them, they always are looking at the bottom line, and they have to because they are business people. And they have not in the past really had a close relationship in terms of trying to employ this particular population of young people, because they've often been served in the summers with the Governor's Summer Youth Program. So I think that they're really kind of taking a look at this to see, well, is this really in our best interest? I think as they look at it closer, and as they see some of the quality of our young people, they're going to realize it is a win-win opportunity and one that they will really want to get involved in.
Well, we need to move this along and get along to some of the components to what we're talking about. We did show a graphic just a moment again. We'll show it again here about the target groups that you're trying to really provide services for. And these include folks who are youth who are involved in foster care, and what other groups? Well,
the target groups are youth in foster care, youth that would be basic skill deficient, at least 2 grades behind their current grade level in reading and the basic skills. It would also be youth that are parents, or youth that are pregnant, youth that are in the juvenile justice system, or youth that have been runaways, or youth with chronic truancy. And so the youth must meet a couple of criteria. One, there's an income eligibility criteria, and then they must meet one of other criteria, as I just mentioned, fall into one of those areas. And so that's how the system works. We're hoping to be able to attract some additional funding from some other funding sources that are non-Workforce Investment Act funds, so that we could serve any youth that need to be served, because we hate to turn away any young person that needs to be served simply because their parents make a few dollars more than income guidelines.
And you're actively recruiting right now, is that right?
Yes, we are actively recruiting now. As I mentioned earlier, we are getting established at all the high schools in Kanawha County, because the great population of youth between 14 and 18 or 19 are going to be at high schools, and there are a few youth that are 14 in the middle schools, and so we will serve them also. The population I didn't mention, Christy, is the out-of-school youth. We have to serve both in-school and out-of-school youth between 14 and 21. So some of the youth that have dropped out of school, or they've completed school, but they've been unable to find their niche. I know you will continue their education or find employment. And so we have right now, about 40 youth that are in the out-of-school category. And so the plan for them, if they haven't complete their high school education or GED equivalency to get them back in high school or to get their GED. And if they have, to look at post-secondary education opportunities and job training and or employment. The ultimate goal is to prepare the youth and get them placed in a job.
As we move on to the components, one is the tutoring and dropout prevention. Explain to us what it is you're hoping to achieve through that.
Well, you know, it's been proven through research that youth that stay up with their class and that are doing well in school have a lot lesser chance of dropping out and of becoming involved in negative behavior. So by federal law, if the kid needs tutoring, then we have to provide that to try to help them have academic success. We're trying to partner with the schools. Many of them have after-school tutoring programs, and so we're trying to build onto that, expanding it with additional tutors so that the kids can be tutored as close to their own neighborhood as possible.
And what's interesting also is that when you look at this population, I mean, they're not necessarily, in a lot of ways, aren't suffering from things that other families aren't. I mean, but they have, a lot of times, other families have the ability to send kids to Sylvan or perhaps have college graduates who are within their social circle that they can help get this kind of assistance to their children.
And that's correct, and it's often a cumulative effect. Unfortunately, sometimes these youth also go to schools that don't perform as well as other schools. And so research has shown that if a child has unfortunately, if they have a bad teacher early, then it has a cumulative effect in a negative way on their education. And so we're just trying to provide them with much support as we can and much encouragement as we can to apply themselves academically.
And as we move on to the second component of this, which would be the alternative secondary school services, and these are services that aren't already in the curriculum, is that correct?
Yes, these are services that are in the curriculum or things that are outside of the normal educational process that would be of benefit or assistance to this population of young people to prepare them for future education and job training.
So that would be things such as what?
Well, it could be some of the things like that we're currently doing. I mean, it isn't mandated that a youth have character education and leadership and these type of things. Or it could be a young person maybe that they're in the alternative school system for some reason. And so we're looking for an opportunity possibly with Job Corps, for example. That's an alternative to the conventional school. Sometimes the youth, maybe they drop out of school, it may not be in their best interest or the best interest of the school for them to return, but they can complete their education, their GED through Job Corps and go into one of their training programs or go to college. So looking for the appropriate alternative services to augment the kids' education.
And another component of this is the summer job experience, and you talked about that, and,
yes.
And I saw firsthand what it was that you all were doing over the summer when you had a group of children who came in and were getting the kinds of skills training that perhaps they don't get on a regular basis.
That's correct. You know, in the past, there'd been a summer piece under the old Job Training Partnership Act. But normally the youth were just assigned to work somewhere at a nonprofit organization, which is great, or at a school or what have you. But under the Workforce Investment Act, it's to be a meaningful work experience that's tied to their education and that as well as tied to real work that they could possibly do at a later time. And that's the reason we really got to get more business partners, because we want to put more youth this coming summer into the private sector, where they can see what a banker does, or a dental hygienist does, or a technician. They can see and talk and interact with these people on a daily basis.
Yeah, I know the internships that I had when I was in college, for example, were extremely valuable in helping me to take that textbook information and transfer it into how you apply it to a real life situation. So that seems to be just extremely valuable to the whole effort.
It's extremely valuable, and you get a feel as to why something is important. If you understand the why, then you're maybe more motivated, you know, to study and to learn it. And so we think that the youth are really benefiting from the summer job experiences.
And that falls right into line with the internships, and I guess this is something that kind of would continue outside of the summer job experience? That's
correct. You know, particularly with the youth that are more advanced in their high school, say junior or seniors, you know, some of the schools in your senior year, if you have a job or an internship, And if you have all of your credits, then you can come to school in the morning and then actually go and get some real work experience. If you recall from your study, you know, as a student, there were old internship programs. I mean, that was a part of the way we developed the workforce. You know, a carpenter would have an apprentice, you know, an electrician would have an apprentice. And the way we passed on skills in our society was through this apprenticeship program. Well, because our economy has gotten so sophisticated and the workforce so sophisticated, you know, we don't do that naturally anymore. And so there's not a natural passing on of skill set. And so internships are a way to accomplish that.
And I'd imagine also the internships kind of take these youngsters out of their environment and kind of prove to them that what can happen through hard work and perseverance for people they may not see in business suits, people who look like them, you know, governing boards and that kind of thing. So I imagine it's important for them to see that also.
You're exactly right. Now, I've always said that it's difficult to become what you've never seen, because if you've never seen it, you can't even imagine it. And so that exposure is a significant part of the educational process. If I'm exposed to something, I develop a comfort level with it, I can start thinking about it, and I can start visualizing myself doing it as I've watched other people do it. So I think that these internships and summer jobs are invaluable, and that's why we're committed. We're depending on the business community to come through, and I know that they will.
Now the fifth component, and there are 10 components total, but the fifth of those is occupational skills training. Explain to us what that is.
It's similar, you know, to the internship, but now you're talking specifically about a specific occupation that you're trying to get this young person exposed to because they've expressed an interest or demonstrated an aptitude for that. For example, we had some young people that had indicated they would like to know more about building construction. So a local friend of mine, Mr. Bob Hardy, operates the Charleston Economic and Community Development Corporation, and they build houses. And they're rebuilding the west side of Charleston on 2nd Avenue. And so we were able to place some youth at his work site. He's a nonprofit organization. We placed him there during the summer, and then he allowed them to work with him and learn how to build houses and about carpentry and plumbing and electricity. So they got firsthand exposure to what you do in building a house.
And the next component is the leadership development. We spoke a little bit about this, character education. When I was coming up, character education was taught right there at the home, you know, in the school, and if you didn't get it one way, you got it with a switch or a paddle or something. But this is something that we really have to take seriously now.
Yeah, we really do need to take it seriously because there are a lot of different voices out there. There's a lot of things on television and in the media, and there's a lot of confusing signals, you know, and so it's important for us to teach our youth that character and integrity is very important, and being a person of honesty is very important, and those are valuable assets to have, and there are things that make you more marketable when you go for employment. And exposing our youth to leadership opportunities where they start seeing themselves, you know, as the leaders of tomorrow. These youth are 14 to 21. Many of them are already eligible to vote. Most will be eligible to vote in the next election. And we want them to start thinking about being city council people and thinking about being on boards and so forth to help lead the community in which they live.
And you deal with them on a daily basis almost. I mean, do they tell you, does it seem like in their minds that's outside the realm of possibility from where you get them when they've come into the program?
Initially, but when you start talking to them and start asking them their opinions about certain things, and they start to articulate their opinion, and you start to get them to see that's legitimate. I mean, you have a good understanding of that, you know, and so your opinion need to be heard, and that's the beauty of a free society, that we have an opportunity to express our opinions, and if we get in positions where our opinions can influence policy, then we're able to impact not only the quality of our own life, but the quality of the lives of others as well.
Now, the seventh of the 10 components for the Workforce Investment Act plan for this region are support services. Explain to us what those services are.
Support services is really a catch-all, and it's basically whatever it takes to keep that young person on track academically or with their employment. Let's say, for example, if a young person was a parent, and if not having a babysitter was keeping them from school or from their job or from some tutoring or what have you, then we have some resources to temporarily get a babysitter until a permanent arrangement can be made so that young person's education or job is not disruptive. If a person has substance abuse, and that's a real problem among a lot of people today, if they do, then we're trying to find some assistance for them to get treatment, to get counseling or what have you. So support services really is a catch-all. Whatever it takes to help keep that person on track, on their goals, is what we're supposed to try to do.
And that speaks to the individual aspect of this, how it's just not a cookie-cutter approach.
Exactly. The idea here is that each youth will have their own individual service strategy. We have to sit down with that youth and sit down with their parent and their counselors at school and develop a plan that is customized for that person. How can we help them be successful over the next 12 months?
Now, the eighth of the 10 components is the adult mentoring slice of this pie, and we know what a big advocate you are of mentoring, and so I imagine that's a pretty significant part of what you're trying to accomplish here.
It's a pretty significant part of it. You know, we really believe that mentoring is a way that many adults can contribute and be involved and share their words of wisdom and impact the lives of young people. And so that's a place where an individual can say, I'm willing to volunteer as a mentor, and we can deploy them.
Follow-up is very important also, I imagine, so you can kind of measure the progress.
That is correct. We have to document all the encounters we have with the young people. We have to document how we are fulfilling their individual service strategy, what exactly was done. And so it's a lot of paperwork, but it's the right type of paperwork, because if you can't document what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you can't improve it. So it's important that you document so that you can follow appropriately.
And finally, the 10th component is the guidance and complete counseling, and this whole thing kind of just speaks to that because it is a complete plan.
Exactly right. I mean, again, we speak a lot about creating as many positive encounters for young people that we can with positive adults. And in so doing that, they get the benefit of the wisdom, the insight, the education, intelligence those adults have. And so we think that comprehensive guidance and counseling is something we're doing all the time. Anytime that there's an issue that a young person is dealing with, that we can provide them with an adult perspective in terms of what the options and the alternatives are, we fulfill this particular component.
So you were awarded the Workforce Investment Act component back in July?
July, that's correct.
Were there any surprises, or is it pretty much as you had expected?
You know, it is a lot of work. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's a lot of, this is a federal program with the Workforce Investment Act money. There's a lot of documentation that needs to be done. We knew it would be a great challenge, and we knew it would be a lot of work. But for the most part, it's what we expected. We did a lot of research on the Workforce Investment Act. We thought we understood it, and we think it's a great opportunity, not only for youth in Kanawha County, but all over the state. There are 7 different regions, and there are groups all over the state that are implementing the Workforce Investment Act, so a person can call their local job services to find out exactly who's running the program in their community and how their young people could participate.
And maybe we can show that graphic again, which has the information on how they can contact HOPE if they were interested in getting more information about what you're doing there, and the number is 342-3249. There are people there, I imagine, that they can speak to.
That's correct. They can speak to any day of the week, Monday through Friday.
All right. So a lot of wonderful things happening at the Hope Community Development Corporation, and we're looking forward to the results.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks again for tuning in for Hope for Helpful Families. We're looking forward to meeting with you next time, and have a great day.